Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. In an episode earlier this week, I talked about how I thought that heading into 2026, we were likely to see a lot more studies and research and experiments that were trying to figure out just how much of the current slate of human work AI was actually able to do. We got a McKinsey study a couple weeks ago that said that up to 57% of tasks could be automated. More recently, we got that MIT Iceberg report, which said that 11.7% of value-generating tasks could be automated. Now, of course, those things have been translated by mainstream media into headlines that 57% of jobs or 12% of jobs are going to be lost. If you want a refutation of why 12% of tasks being able to be automated doesn't mean 12% of jobs going away, listen to yesterday's episode. But alongside those types of studies, what I hope for is that we're also going to get more research around how these things are playing out in practice. There is a seismic gap and massive difference in what AI can theoretically do and what it is actually doing in practice. Now, one of the companies that is most on the spot right now when it comes to providing some amount of that real lived experience information is Anthropic. Yesterday, we looked at some research that they did around their own team, where they had interviewed researchers and engineers in August to figure out how Claude and Claude Code were impacting their work. And today we're looking at an even more expanded look at how AI is working in practice with the introduction of Anthropic Interviewer. The TLDR is that Anthropic launched a new research tool and tested it by asking professionals about their experience working with AI. Now, I want to focus mostly on the results and what the professionals actually said more than the tool itself, but it is worth mentioning the tool itself a little bit because some are understanding that holding aside this specific use case for it, this potentially represents a broader pattern in how research happens in the future. Now, in their introduction, Anthropic points out that while they recently developed Clio, which is a privacy-preserving system for getting insights from real-world AI use of Claude, there were inherent limits there. As they write, the tool only allowed us to understand what was happening within conversations with Claude. What about what comes afterwards? How are people actually using Claude's outputs? How do they feel about it? What do they imagine the role of AI to be in their future? If we want a comprehensive picture of AI's changing role in people's lives and to center humans in the development of models, we need to ask people directly. Such a project, they noted, would require us to run many hundreds of interviews. Here, we enlisted AI to help us do so. Now, Google's Tao Dong got that there was something interesting about the form factor here. He writes, "After reading the project blog post and a few transcripts, my initial impression is that we're seeing a new genre of user research, a crossover between surveys and interviews. I'm tempted to call it semi-structured surveys. It acts like a survey with predefined open-ended questions, but with the ability to ask decent follow-up questions on the fly. While these 10 to 15-minute sessions weren't particularly deep, they combined the scale of a survey with the flexibility of a moderator. Pairing this with AI analysis allowed the team to identify quantitative patterns and actually explain why they exist. It seems like a fascinating experiment. What's your take?" My take is that this is pretty much exactly what we built, or at least a version of it, with Superintelligent. In Superintelligence audits and assessments, whether they are our agent readiness assessments or our new plateau breaker assessments, one of the key ideas is that surveys are great for scale but bad for context. Interviews are great for context but bad for scale. But with AI, particularly voice AI, you don't have to make that trade-off. And rather than inferring from a small sample, you can just go ask everybody. Now, I don't think that this is some crazy novel insight, nor do I think that our technology is some stratospheric leap. But I think that this particular pattern of using AI to radically scale information gathering and then speed up information analysis is something that is absolutely going to become de rigueur for all sorts of current research processes. And in so doing, it is going to open up totally new types of research that weren't possible before because of the scale of information that you can collect and analyze. So before we move on to the specific results, I would say if you are thinking about interesting research projects across basically any domain, if they involve talking with people, I believe that you can radically increase your ambition thanks to the new tools that are available. All right, so back to this actual survey of these 1,250 professionals. For our purposes, what I'm most interested in is what they said about working with AI. Now, presumably, this group is probably going to be more enthusiastic than a random sample of 1,250 people. And so I think that that caveat is important. But within that, some of the high-level insights from Anthropic are that, one, people are optimistic about the role that AI plays in their work. Positive sentiment characterized the majority of topics discussed. However, as we'll see, there are a small number of topics that have more relatively pessimistic outlooks. A second insight, which I think is really valuable about how we design systems and think about displacement, people from the general workforce want to preserve tasks that define their professional identity while delegating routine work to AI. They envision futures where routine tasks are automated and their roles shift to overseeing AI systems. Again, I don't think that that's particularly novel, but it's interesting to see that that is how people are starting to think about their role as well. We talk a lot as insiders about this idea of shifting to a model where humans manage AI agents and AI systems, but it's interesting to see that start to come out as an expectation or a goal from individual professionals as well. A third insight, which absolutely resonates with what I'm seeing, is that despite creatives facing pure judgment and anxiety about their future, they are turning to AI to increase their productivity. As Anthropic puts it, they are navigating both the immediate stigma of AI use in creative communities and deeper concerns about economic displacement and the erosion of human creative identity. Lastly, number 4, Anthropic writes that scientists want AI partnership but can't yet trust it for core research. Scientists uniformly express a desire for AI that could generate hypotheses and design experiments, but at present they confine their actual use to tasks like writing manuscripts or debugging analysis code. So what's interesting here, as opposed to some of these other areas, is that it sounds like scientists want AI to do more or at least be more helpful with their core functions, not just those routine tasks to be automated. So let's look at the visualization. If you're listening to the show, I'll go through this pretty fast, but if you are watching it, the blue-gray represents more pessimistic, the muted yellow represents more optimistic. And you can see across almost every category, optimism mostly beats out pessimism. The one area it appears to me where there's relatively more pessimism, at least among the general workforce, is in career adaptation, which makes sense. Now, among creatives, there are a few areas where, again, pessimism takes a little bit more root. In particular, artist displacement shows actually people more pessimistic than optimistic overall, same with writer displacement. Among scientists, the biggest area that saw actual more pessimism than optimism is around security concerns. And when you dig into the examples they shared, a lot of it reflects broader sentiment that you hear day in and day out on social media. For example, a lot of folks are trying to figure out what parts of their jobs won't be automated, which parts of their skills will be valuable in a future where they assume AI is ubiquitous. For example, a trucking dispatcher said, "I'm always trying to figure out things that humans offer to the industry that can't be automated, and really hone in on that aspect, like the personalized human interactions. However, that is not something that I think will be necessary in the long run. I'm still trying to figure out what skills would be good to work on that AI can't take over." Obviously, way bigger than just that particular job role. This question is particularly pertinent, I think, because it's not only something that people should be asking individually, but it's also something that people who are designing, upskilling, and retraining systems need to be hyper-conscious of. It is not going to be particularly useful if we design a bunch of training programs that just get obviated by GPT-7. Another thing that comes up on the pessimism side is the stigma of using AI. A salesperson, for example, said, "I hear from colleagues that they can tell when email correspondence is AI generated, and they have a slightly negative regard for the sender. They feel slighted and the sender is too lazy to send them a personalized note and push it on to AI to do it." I think one really interesting question is to what extent that is a temporary transitional feeling, where in the future people will feel like, of course they used AI to write an email, or if that's going to be something that's more persistent. On the optimism side, however, you see tons of reflective comments. People looking to AI to help them manage their time, expand their creativity, reduce their stress by allowing them to focus on the best parts of their job. Overall, 86% of professionals reported that AI saves them time, and 65% said that they were satisfied with the role AI plays in their work. Across different categories of work, there was a pretty similar distribution of frustration, satisfaction, with slightly expanded worry in categories like art, design, and media. Among creative professionals, there is a much bigger band of responses. Designers, for example, see much more frustration than filmmakers, and in many cases, you just see complication even within individual categories. Worry and satisfaction and hope and frustration all sitting alongside one another. In my estimation, this is the type of survey that needs to happen, not once in a while, but on a very regular basis. I want to see these questions tracked over time, and I want to see that data available to policymakers of all stripes. Now, one really cool thing about this as we wrap, Anthropic is making all of the data available in a public data set that you can download from Hugging Face, of course with all the participants' approval, meaning that if you are so interested, you can go interact with and run your own analysis on this research as well. Overall, I think these 1,200 professionals tell us a lot of the same story that we've been seeing for years now. A future that has so much opportunity, but is fundamentally different. And in that difference, somewhat scary as well. Good job to Anthropic for digging up this real information, but that's going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening or watching as always, and until next time, peace.